This is the Post Shift Podcast, a raw look at the hospitality industry. Hey, Post Shifters, this is your host, Shawn Soole. Welcome to the Post Shift Podcast. This week, I had a very special guest in the way of Shoel Davidson. I'm completely and utterly fortunate and grateful that I get to sit down and talk to people who inspire me. I get to ask questions to people who I may have looked up to. I've said this a million times before. I don't care how many times I have to say it again. This may be the first time you listen to my podcast, but I'm lucky enough to sit down with people who I revere in this industry, and Shoel's definitely one of those. He's behind, along with a whole bunch of other people on his board, Mind the Bar in Vancouver, or on the West Coast here. They've had a ton of success. I get to sit down with him, talk about mental health in the industry, what sort of led him to it. I've been a big proponent for mental health in this industry since Little Jumbo and my issues and my struggles with mental health in this industry. So it was really nice to sit down with a guy who's pretty much the same age, same sort of experience, and sort of bounce our life experiences off each other. And I really hope you enjoy this episode. If you're a youngster, please listen to all the way to the end. It's a long podcast, don't get me wrong. But if you're young and you're feeling like you're alone, you're not alone. There are people out there that can help you. So please listen. At the end, there's a little post edit for next week. I hope you enjoy it. And thank you very much for the support. Bye. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
I usually start off with that. And then, so I never write down questions. I do a little bit of research, and then I love just having conversations with people, and 9 times out of 10 people I've never met before, like you.
Yeah, like I said, as I was walking over here, I was about to say, in my head, I was thinking, oh, good to see him again. I was like, I don't think we've ever met.
Well, we're Facebook friends.
Right, well then it's official.
It's official.
Yeah. It's like dating.
Yeah. Wait till you go to Tails or something like that. That's the worst place for Facebook. Because
where it just populates?
Well, you're just walking through, and you can see people I know you.
Right.
I've never met you, but I know you. We've talked on Facebook, or we've commented on our pictures, or something I know you. And you walk through the ones that we own like this, like ships in the night, and then you just disappear again. And eventually, after a couple of drinks, it's like, hey, I just want to come over and meet. Like, the first time I met Zach, it's Hailing. Fucking Victoria. First time I met
BC.
Zach Doy, the big guy from Toronto. First time I met him, I'm like, wait a second, you're as big as me. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, well, this is the first time we've met. I've only ever seen you on Facebook. So and he comes up and hugs me. I'm like, holy shit, you're 6'2" and my size. But let's introduce yourself.
My name is Shoel Davidson. I am the founder and president of the Mind the Bar Foundation. I guess I also own Gringo and Dixie's Barbecue. Those are the ones that pay the bills.
Yeah.
Mind the Bar is the passion project.
And it has been a very successful passion project. How long has it been going for now? When was the...
So we would be officially registered under the BC Societies Act. I want to say it's September 7th, 2018, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
Somewhere in there. I probably actually...
So you're only 6 months old?
Yeah.
And when you say BC Societies Act, you're official?
We are official. We are an
wow.
official nonprofit. I think that is one of the factors that really helped us edge out the win down in Mexico with the Tijuana competition.
Well, because usually a lot of these things get set up as a nice fundraiser and you write checks and stuff like that, but it's never an official non-profit organization.
Our industry is notorious for having the best of intentions, but sometimes when it comes to actually organizing the best ideas that we have at 2 a.m, the follow-through is not always so much. It was lengthy in progress. I guess it would have. It would have started, I guess, with my Facebook post for Bell Let's Talk. So that would have been January 30th, 2018. That got a lot of response that I was not expecting. That created a lot of conversation, and those conversations quickly led to some of the ideas that I had about what we might be able to do about mental health within the hospitality industry. And then, a lot of credit goes to the people I've surrounded myself with, the current board of directors, and a lot of people that intend on coming on to be members, people that have been helping from the side, from the shadows. But to be we are now officially registered, so that's something where already we're experiencing a learning curve. Is that a lot of people don't understand what it takes to operate a nonprofit. I love the fact that it's hailing right now.
It's snow hailing.
It's snow hailing in March.
Sunny.
Yeah. Oh, BC.
Oh my God.
This is where our tax dollars go.
Yeah. So, what fill in the people who are listening? What was the post that you did about with the bell? Let's talk.
I mean, I think it's shared publicly. It wouldn't, and anyone would be able to go onto my Facebook account and find it. It was something to the effect of, in the year previous, I had just encountered a real low point with my own mental health. I've suffered with depression and suicide most of my life since my adolescence. And then it's kind of been an uphill, downhill battle. Anyone that's struggled with mental health illness knows that there's good days and bad days, and sometimes there's no rhyme or reason to it. Unfortunately, 2017, there was a culmination of personal and professional stressors that just pushed me to a certain point. Again, I know a lot of us have experienced that. And I found myself in a position where I wasn't okay. I actually got to the point where there was a voice in my head that was strongly urging me to take my own life. And that was a very scary point because I didn't want to. I really love the life that I have and the people I have in it. So I recognized that I wasn't okay and that I needed help. And then the part of that process was reaching out to my business partner, who's also the vice president of the foundation, Christina Cautel, and basically told her that I wasn't okay. And then the process of trying to find help became a very difficult one for me. Fortunately, in our industry, we are incredibly familiar. There's an incredible support network. There's an incredible support network within our industry. But in that process, I also found that I had to remove myself from the industry because one thing we are notorious about in this industry is that if someone comes and sits down at your bar and it's like, oh, I'm not doing so well, the first kind of impulse we have is to give them a drink, to give them a shot, cover their bill, that kind of stuff. Like basically drink their problems away, which is exactly the opposite way in which we should be going. Yeah. And I'm guilty. I had been guilty of providing that, and I also had experienced that on a number of instances where I kind of went in and like, I'm really depressed, and someone like, here's a drink. It's like, I kind of just need to talk to someone. Yeah. So the hardest but most important thing for me was removing myself from the industry, which was very difficult because that's the family that I've grown over the last 20 years. I was able to find the help. I was able to get myself to a much stronger and better place. But in that journey, I kind of went through a number of experiences recognizing the pitfalls and incredible lacking, both within the mental health field, within BC, and I would suspect Canada at large, and also the difficulties that we as a hospitality industry struggle with because we don't exist under the regular 9 to 5.
I think also a lot of us, I think definitely much more some of the older guys as well, older vets, we get in the industry because we're at the core of us, we're people pleasers.
Right.
And this is where I've always struggled, is like when I finish up a shift, I'm usually mentally exhausted because it's like a baseball game.
Right.
You leave it out on the pitch.
Yeah.
Like you play your heart out, and when you finish your shift, you're just like mentally exhausted, physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted, because that's what your job is. You're there to please people and entertain people and make people happy.
Well, something that I'd said early on when Mind the Bard started to form is that one of the platforms was it was time for us as an industry to start taking care of ourselves as well as we take care of our guests. Because as you say, like we are there, we give ourselves entirely to our guests and staff and ownership and stuff like that, and then by the end of it, you've given so much of yourself away. There's really nothing left for you.
Yeah.
And unlike a 9 to 5er where you can kind of wind down, like we're winding down anywhere between midnight to 5 a.m. Yeah. Like people are just like, oh, just go home. It's like, you can't go home. Your brain is spinning 1,000 miles a minute, whether you're front of house or back of house. Like you've been getting yelled at. You're like, did I forget the water on this? Did I forget the drink on that? Like, what was their sides? All that's things, and like your brain is just spinning out of control. So,
yeah, and I think for me, I've been vocal about my mental health issues, and they sort of rooted out of
my thing with Little Jumbo back in 2014. Like when that happened, like my wife has always been very open. She's always gone to therapy and she's been on medication for her anxiety and stuff like that. But like coming from Australia, mid 30s, like I would say toxic masculinity to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like I finished up at Little Jumbo and I got some serious PTSD, like 3-month non-compete, like 3 months severance. Like every single week was like, hey, you got to pay me my severance, and they're like, oh no, you did this, and lawyers and all that sort of stuff. So it took me a really long time to go see someone about it. And then I went on medication, but it was like sort of forced on me to go on it. And then I tried to go cold turkey a year later. But now I'm sort of comfortable, and I've talked to a few people now about their anxiety and depression and that. So I think it's like, dude, just go see a doctor. Like medicate, like don't get me wrong, like over medication is bad.
Yeah.
If you can control your stuff, like I medicate myself every night, but it makes my days so much better.
Right.
And I talked. Me and my wife have a much broader transparency relationship now.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to talk because I think there is a certain level of like masculinity, machismo.
Oh, especially
I think especially males in the industry.
Definitely, and especially also when it comes to medication. Like the idea of like you have to take medication for your anxiety or your depression. Like what? The most common thing is like, what are you, crazy? Or like it's like, well, though I'm not taking any medication, but I've certainly explored it. I've explored it with my psychologist, and we've kind of weighed the checks and balances, and it's not for everybody. Some people, I know some people, and I have the utmost admiration for them that need antidepressants, or they cannot function, and it's the synapses in your brain. Like
my wife's been on medication since she was 12.
Right.
So it's the same thing, chemical makeup and that sort of thing. But like for me, it was definitely something. But then I think I was at Cafe Mexico was just about to open, and I was like feeling those stresses again. I'm almost like, okay, you know what? I'm going to see the doctor. You know what? I need a little bit. I was waking up with panic attacks in the middle of the night, and it's just taken the edge off. And I find it hard to talk to people because there's an industry, not an industry stigma, but like I always feel like we wear two faces.
Yeah.
We have our industry at work, awesome face, and then we have our actual real at home with the family face. And so when I talk about it, people are like, no, you're not. You're an arrogant, obnoxious douche behind the bar. I'm like, when I'm at home, I'm a bag of nerves because I'm like, oh, did I not keep that person happy? Or I read a review that mentioned me in particular, and it throws you off. And so for me, I control it in that way, and try and exercise a little bit more, which helps a lot too. But I think the stigmas always came about like, well, you don't really talk about your problems openly, and like that's how I grew up with my family. Is like you don't talk about your problems openly, you don't air your dirty laundry sort of thing. But I think after Brendan died a couple of years ago, that sort of woke me up to like, you know what, like there's some serious fucking issues we have to deal with in this industry.
Yeah, I mean we've lost so many names, big names like Bourdain and more familiar names, local names like Brennan. And I mean, when we started discussing Mind the Bar, I had no misgivings that we'd probably lose more people along the way, and we continue to. It's just the hope that what we're starting to see, and I think that Mind the Bar, I'd like to believe, is playing a small part in it. Is like just checking Facebook today. Like I'm seeing more and more people come forward and expressing their situation with their own mental health. Like I just saw something today about someone dealing with bipolar disorder, and just being able to say like, hey, listen, I'm just dealing with this. I just want everyone to know it's not personal. It's just something I'm going through and something I experienced. And it's just to be able to have that transparency now. Just I think it takes a lot of the stress off. But when you're saying how people have this perception of the way things should be, and like I grew up, I didn't have a lot of friends in school and et cetera, so I'm naturally very shy and introverted. But in this industry, if you are that way, you're not going to make any money. So you kind of have to learn. So I'm kind of a shy introvert with a shell of like an extroverted, outgoing person. But you are a persona behind the bar that you kind of learn and hone through peers and tutelage. But then the minute your shift's done, a lot of the people are just like, oh, it's like you get to take that face off, and
you become a character of yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And what was really interesting for me was when I put up that post on Facebook about my own mental illness. My parents aren't on social media. And my dad called me the next day and said, hey, just wanted to see how you're doing. And I was very open and honest with him in the previous year about when I really wasn't doing well. And he did everything he could as a loving father to make sure that I was okay. But he says, I've had some friends of the family basically reach out saying that you've put something on social media and they feel that it could jeopardize, if not destroy, your career and your reputation within the industry.
Jesus.
And I understood where it was coming from, because it's that old mentality, right? It's that old guard where it's like you say, it's especially the men, like you don't talk about this stuff, like you bury it away in a chest somewhere and you never let it out. And if it comes up again, you put that in the chest as well. And I might have paraphrased, but I read out to my dad what I had written, and I said, "What do you think?" And he says, "I think that's exactly what you experienced." I said, "Yeah." And I said, "The very fact that there's people out there that think that I shouldn't be talking about this is all the more reason why I feel like we need to talk about it."
Yeah.
I checked with my business partner before I posted it, just to say, this is coming from me. This is not coming from our companies. But she's been incredibly supportive of it the whole way. She's the one that actually really pushed me to create Mind the Bar.
Wow. Yeah, and then the thing is, I find that every single time that when I posted the event we're doing, and when this podcast goes up, it'll be in 5 days, but
Right.
a couple of weeks.
On April 3rd, yeah.
But when I posted that, one of my kids at work reached out, commented on it. I'm like, dude, how have you not told me about this?
Yeah.
We've talked about this. How have you not told me this is how you're feeling? And he's like, well, so me and my right hand took him down for coffee. We sat down. I'm like, okay, talk us through what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
And it shocked me, the fact that I worked so closely with him, that he wasn't open enough to tell me about that. It was he posted on Facebook, and I find that every time I post something, the first time I posted something about mental health, someone in the industry in Vancouver messaged me personally and was like, I think you share too much. I think you share too much, and it's going to tell the young kids too much, and give them the wrong impression about the industry. And I was like, I felt bad about reading that, and I was like, you know what? I've gone through a whole load of stuff, and if the kids today see that and see that someone who is looks like he has everything
Right.
is feeling that way, then them feeling that way is not so bad.
Well, I think that the industry is already struggling and suffering right now with employment.
Yeah.
We're just not able to find the staffing, especially in back of house. And a lot of that comes down to the old guard, the old mentality of you're going to take shit and have to eat it and smile about it. And the younger generations are going this is ridiculous. I don't want to do this.
This is the most inefficient way to have a job ever.
Right. And the fact where it's if I'm not doing so well, the fact that I'm yelled at rather than supported is we're just seeing more and more people turn away. And I haven't put up too many posts, but obviously Mind the Bar has kind of created something of a lightning rod, and I guess I'm attached to that. But I've been fortunate to have people within the industry in Vancouver, and I've had people reach out to me as Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, obviously abroad, but in Canada, just being this is really important. Can we bring Mind the Bar to some of the other provinces?
Wow, that's awesome.
Which at this point we can't because we're a BC Societies Act.
Yeah.
We can go federal, but what we really need to do and what we're pressing on is to get things in order here.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of have a template that can be moved to other regions.
So the response has been good.
The response has been overwhelming. We expected one of the things when we kind of came together as an unofficial board at that point, and we kind of looked at our timeline, we thought it was going to take us the better half of a year to not only convince the industry that there was a problem, but that it was time to fix it. And it was kind of this big wall that we went to push against, and the wall just crumbled, and everyone's no, this so many people are this is so long overdue. And that's why I don't think that I have by any means invented the wheel or discovered fire. It'd been in the groundwork for some time. It just happened to be right place, right time, and
which is all it takes.
Yeah.
And so I think the big thing you've done in the last 6 months was the Tohono Society thing in Mexico.
Yeah.
And so walk us through with the Tohono, what the Altos Tohono thing is.
Well, I mean, I can definitely say it was the best and almost, I don't want to say worst thing for us, but it's because we weren't totally prepared for it to catapult us as far forward as it had. And we actually had to kind of, we landed and we were just like so excited, we just like, we're not ready to be this far forward. So we've had to kind of regress and get things in order. But Alex Black, who was one of the founding members, one of the founding directors, had approached me early on and said, Pernod Ricard and Altos Tequila are doing this event down in Mexico called the Collective Spirit, with the Tohono Society was putting on. Last year, Calcinian won for Trash Tiki. But this year, they had decided to remove the cocktail element. And so they basically were looking for 12 competitors internationally, one from representing different countries, on platforms that benefited the industry. So whether that was grey water reuse or organics or recycling, that kind of thing. And Alex was just like, I really want to put Mind the Bar forward. And he had our support, so it's like, great. He ran with it. We got through the Canadian section of it, I guess, very easily. There was a lot of people involved within the industry that were basically just like, you guys are the Canadian representation, which in itself is kind of a huge win and a compliment, regardless of what happened in Mexico. And Alex and Mackenzie Chilton, who's one of our directors as well, went down to represent Mind the Bar, because if it's one thing that I'm not good at is being in front of the camera and public spheres. So I have good people that do good PR.
Alex likes that.
Yes, yes, he does. Excuse me. And so it was a competition over several days, and the end result was that there really was two winners, and kind of one winner in the fact that we somewhat shared the win with the team from Chicago, Team USA, because they were doing an almost identical mental health platform. And again, I think one of the reasons we may have won, that the judges have said, is because we were further along in our organization. But the fact that mental health awareness was the 1-2, or tied for first, however you want to put it, in this competition, I think spoke volumes internationally as to where, and Mexico is not a very forward mental health country. Within the industry, they are very quietly, but in the greater scheme of things, not so much. But it was a huge compliment that we are, on the right track. So it was a huge win. I didn't actually see it. I couldn't get the stream, the live stream working. And Christina calls me, and she's like, crying. She's like, "We did it! We did it!" I was like, "What is she talking? We're talking about business?" She's like, "No, you idiot! Mind the Bar won." So with that, we're still working out the legal logistics, which is. A lot of people have wondered where that big check went. It hasn't been cashed, unfortunately.
It's just still sitting in Alex Black's bedroom.
Right. I think if I remember correctly, they lost it somewhere in Mexico, which doesn't totally surprise me. But because it was such a huge win that Pernod Ricard and Altos, they've never done anything like this before. So their marketing and legal team is trying to kind of figure it out just as quickly as how does this all work? But it came with a $50,000 US check, which is great on the conversion rate right now. They want to support and help us throughout the year, if not indefinitely. So,
and Pernod Ricard's a nice little partner to have.
Yeah.
Nice little back pocket, sort of pull out and align with events and stuff.
Right. Well, the big thing for us though is that. It's phenomenal to have these such a big name with us. But what we really want to make sure is that no one's being left out. If there is with the thing happening on April 3rd is the launch of our collaboration with Russell Brewing. So it's a Surrey, BC based company.
It's a good beer,
and
I got a full back in my fridge right now.
I got to admit that actually once they released it, I should say, I barely drink anything else because I still want to be social. I still want to go out and be able to hang out with my peers, but it was those few drinks that really, it slowed me down, and definitely the next day I was a lot slower. So it's nice to have a beer or two. But Doug Emery was one of their reps, and Jimmy Darbyshire is their marketing. Came forward very early on. They said, "We really want to do something with you guys."
Oh wow!
And so,
so they came to you.
They came to us.
Oh wow!
They knew what they knew about the foundation, but we had one of our platforms, or one of the things we had discussed was doing low or supporting low and zero proof beverages within the community, and that's not just pop or Shirley Temples, like quality ingredients, and that like people will pay. I'll pay $10+ for a zero proof delicious
you
cocktail.
can socialize and
Right.
But again, I have a thing with socialization because I did world class last year, and my me cocktail was a cocktail called The Perception and the Truth, and it was about like we had a little get together with all the world class guys, and it was in a big room, and I don't like give me 3 feet of wood between me.
Right.
I am king of the world.
Yeah.
You put me in a group where there's nothing in between to like buffer. I had a panic attack, and I had to leave and walk downstairs and get fresh air.
Yeah.
And John Gakuru, who I've known for like 20 years, was like bar backing.
Right.
And then I had Grancini, Jeff Bell, I think it was Kate Stewart, as the judges. And I was telling people how I can't handle social situations, and it's very hard for me. I have to psych myself up to be in social situations, regardless of drinks involved or not. And at the end of it, they just came up to me and was like, "Is that really how you feel?" I'm like, "Yeah." It wasn't like I was sugarcoating. Like, I had a panic attack last night. Like, I was just in the room and I had to leave the situation because I don't like socializing in that way. But I agree. Like, you get in this habit if you have those sort of anxieties that you go, okay, well, I'm going to have a couple of shots of bourbon, a couple of shots of Fernet,
Right.
have a couple of beers, and I'm going to be good.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be king of the world then.
It really is amazing how many people within the hospitality industry suffer from social anxieties. Like you don't realize the number of people out there. But
I think deep down inside we were all the geeks in school that didn't have any friends, and they were like, you know what? I become a bartender.
That was 100%
I'm going to be
me.
awesome. That was me too.
Yeah. Got the friends I never had. Got the family, the familial kind of like hangout group that I never had. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think most of us are like that, but none of us want to admit that.
Right.
I think everybody threw up a throwback Thursday to like their high school picture. Like, I came to Canada, I was 6'5" and 160 pounds, with a 4-inch tall faux hawk front to back. Like, leaving high school was the same thing. It was like just a hardcore, like, not many friends, work, family business, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think we all get into the bartending business for different reasons, but I think that if you do the survey of like all the people who've been doing it for 20 years, the number one reason is like, I wanted to make friends or meet girls.
Or easy way to make money to pay for post-secondary.
Yeah,
but,
all that too.
Yeah, which is exactly mine.
I'm in post-secondary now.
Right.
I'm in school now, which I have no idea why I thought when I was coming on 40 that I would do that.
I left from Vancouver to go to Montreal to pull my head out of my ass. Went to university there and eventually came back, but did several years of university, changing my degrees, but working in restaurant from dishwasher. I've worked every position there is, but dishwasher was my first job all the way up. I think it's most of the old guard's first job is like, okay, here's your apron, get in the pit. But the funny thing is that it was the industry, working in the industry, that I enjoyed doing more than any of the other things that I was pursuing, and ultimately led me to open my own restaurant.
So let's go. Which you opened Gringo first?
Yeah, Gringo's now 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, in restaurant years, that's like 100.
That really is. That's like you've been around forever.
Yeah, and making money, which is even more rare.
Dixie's about 2 years old?
Dixie's is 3 this past month. So
it's fine.
Yeah, we've got a Gringo and Squamish in the works, and then we're looking at North Van, New West. Hopefully, we'd love to get over the island.
That'd be great.
That's the plan.
You ever notice that if you go up on Fort and Blanchard, you can sit and see El Taqueria, Taco Fino, and La Taquisa, all from one doorway.
Well, it seems like we're all kind of in this. We're all together wherever we go. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everybody opens up at the exact same time. I think there's Virtuous Pie is opening up just in here.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, literally just up the doorway here. So Virtuous Pie is moving to Vancouver, Victoria as well.
I love the island. I was born and raised in Vancouver, but one of my brothers lives out here, and I'm looking at Courtney Comox, Cumberland area.
Oof, that's a good growing market too.
Yeah.
I've been here since I was for 13 years. So I came here for a girl.
Yeah.
Broke up with her about 3 months later. Met my
It's
wife
funny
3
how
months
travel
after.
works like that.
Met my wife 3 months after that, and then been with her. Oh, geez, I think we're on 15 years now.
Congratulations.
15 years, 13, or especially in this industry.
Yeah.
And most people like
Patient enough to put up with you and wait for you to come home.
and most people can't do an 8-hour shift with me, let alone for 15 years. So what's the plans for Mind the Bar in the future? Obviously, like coming up quickly, if you're listening, April 3rd, the Churchill. We're doing a beer launch.
Well, yeah. So it's Russell beer. It's Russell Brewing's beer. We're associated with it. So the way that it basically works is that they approached us. They wanted to collaborate with us. Our board stipulated some fairly simplistic rules. It had to be low proof. Mm-hmm. It had to be fairly inexpensive because nobody wants to have a $20 can of beer.
Yep.
And it had to be crushable.
Yeah.
And they went to work on it, and I think what they put forward is phenomenal.
I think they did a great job.
We're $10 a 4-pack, and the ABV is 3.5.
Yep.
You know, and one thing we're really hoping for in a lot of other breweries, especially like here in Victoria, especially. A lot of other people have asked if they could participate, and we'd love 20 breweries to do low proof and zero proof options, because just to be able to have those in the places you go would be huge. So the way that the donations work is that 50 cents from every 4-pack and $15 from every keg sold on their behalf.
Oh, it's on tap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Comes straight back to the foundation. So I know that they are north of 200 locations across BC and Alberta, and I should add that because we're a BC Societies Act and we're not set up in Alberta, but we're selling that beer, we're actually, any of the money that's being raised in Alberta is being brought through the foundation and then put back out to the Canadian Mental Health Associations in Edmonton and Calgary, just because if they're kind enough to donate to mental health, and we felt like it should go
100%
back to that province. But yeah, I think they're north of 200 locations. I know that when they first did up the first batch, it was 5 pallets and it sold out in under 2 days.
It's been popular, and I've looked at a couple of liquor stores and there's always a big stand and the whole shebang, which I've been so happy to see. And now knowing it was on Keg, if you've ever met, you probably haven't met Jay, the rep here. Jay's bigger than me. Like, he's 6'8".
I met him very briefly because Russell Brewing actually had their staff party at Dixie's, and I had a chance to meet him. And you're right, he's huge. And that's how I remember him. I was just like, okay,
he's literally in my phone as Big J Hope. So it's good to know that it's on tap, because I'm just about to rotate all my dark beers off tap at Pag, so I'll put it on tap for a bit.
It's such a good summer beer. It's like like the Parallel 49 Radler. Parallel 49. Their tricycle.
Yeah.
But, it just fits in with that kind of criteria.
I got a 4-pack last night. I finished up some schoolwork, and I was like, I haven't been drinking very much. The most I've been drinking is during my episodes doing BC Spirit stuff.
Right.
And I'm like, I've just pounded 6 liqueurs, which nobody needs to pound 6 liqueurs all at once. I'm doing brandy this week as well, which is 8 different brandies. Right. All order bees and stuff. And I'm like, I just want a quiet beer, and because I'm under a lot of stress at school, I literally took my laptop and had a bath, and I'm listening to what I had to listen to for school, and my wife walks in, and I'm sitting there with a beer, with the bar there, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm listening to schoolwork, and I'm answering questions on my laptop on the toilet. She's like, I'm like, is this a new low for me? And she's like, yes, Soole, this is a new low for you. And I'm typing away while I'm in the bathtub with my mind the beer. I know that's a bad visual for everybody listening. Everybody listening is just turn it off now. The podcast is over.
Made me like you do those French girls.
Yeah, exactly. So what's next for Mind? You've only been 6 months. You've had a huge amount of success.
It's kind of not what's next. It's what's first, which has been our biggest struggle, because we've heard it all in the last little bit. We've had some people question whether or not it's a fraud, it's a scam, and that we're taking all this money. It's if I give you a hint,
industry people.
In the general, but I can understand, because unfortunately there is a history of people with the best a good intended fundraiser that had the money doesn't go where it should be. So I totally get it. One of the stipulations we actually we're fundamental, or what's the word I'm looking for? just dedicated to having within our bylaws is that under absolutely no circumstances does any member, director, or officer ever receive $1 for their time.
Wow. Which doesn't, really, let's be honest, BC societies in general.
Well,
that very rarely happens.
A lot of nonprofits are they're tax havens. They're shells for other larger companies.
And we make so much money in the hospitality industry. We need tax shells.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Anyone that owns a restaurant knows just how much money you can
it's just
make.
A massive tax shell.
And anyone that doesn't, that knows that we don't make any money. It's the dumb business. Never open a restaurant. We're all probably clinically insane.
Yes.
But it was because of other people abusing it. It was just so important for us to be like, okay, let's make sure that it's because the idea obviously is that in 10 years we want Mind the Bar to still exist. Now all of the current, myself and a lot of other the directors, I would assume probably will have moved on and gone on to do other things, but that can't change. No one can collect $1. So every single hour, and I mean there are tens of thousands of hours probably at this point, well, maybe not that much, but there's a lot, thousands upon thousands of hours between the directors and members that have poured into it, and no one's got $1 for their time. Everyone does it out of the goodness of their heart. At the end of each year, we all are also making a point of posting our annual finances right on our website. So anyone can go in and look at it. There's full transparency behind it. It's something that's been so important to us because what I really want people to see is that if you donate even $1, that $1 is going towards the betterment. It's not. It's not going towards. My companies pay me. Maybe not well, but they pay me.
Yeah.
I couldn't, and none of the other directors, we couldn't with any sort of moral compass know that if we were even taking $20 and putting in our pocket for our time, that could be going to that person, that colleague, that staff member that needs help, wants to talk to someone, that's where the money should be going. So really where Mind the Bar is now is we're still kind of getting our ducks in a row. Our priorities are officially launching the website. There is a phenomenal amount of work going into that website as far as we have some directors, Mackenzie and Jana and Brandy, and people that have indirectly affiliated themselves through the Canadian Mental Health Association that have this incredible wealth of mental health knowledge, but it's all clinical. And for I'm not in that field, and you're not in that field. So when you read it, it's just it just turns into gobbledygook. And especially if you're in an anxiety attack or you're depressed, the clinical terms don't help you. I just want to know why I'm feeling sad or what are some of those? So we're making that very user-friendly. We're creating it so that you can click on things. It's I'm feeling a little depressed. And the whole thing is to create a level 1 through 10 system where it's if you're level 10, that's you need to call 911. And we're going to urge you to do that. If someone were to contact us threatening to take their own life or something like that, we're still trying to figure out legally if we can, but that's a 911 button. But then there's the lower levels. I really want to talk to someone. I want to seek a therapist or a counselor. And then there's just stuff where it's I just have some questions. Am I suffering from anxiety? Because anxiety feels like a heart attack. Am I suffering from depression, or is it something else? And I mean, there's so many different types of depression, whether it's seasonal or issues with bipolar disorder, etc. So website's really the big thing because that's the hub. That's where we want to have all the information about the various pillars, whether it's addiction, anxiety, depression, or harassment, workplace harassment. And then immediately there, or probably in tandem with this, is membership. So we've had people just banging at our doors, banging down the windows, we want to get involved, we want to be a part of this, this is so important to us. But what we're just trying to do is make sure that all the committees and policies and the system itself is set up, because the last thing we want is to open up the front door, have 100 people run in being all right, let's do this, and it's we're not ready. And our industry loses patience on things pretty quickly. And also that it would make us look like we don't know what we're doing. So we've had a lot of people working with us that are not officially members yet, but we know that we have all these little things set up, and we're about to get the PDF form and everything ready to go. So that'll be the next thing, and then thereafter is everything else we want to do, which is seminars about the various elements of mental health, financial, our financial support is, our financial, what's the word I'm looking for? Advice, because obviously we work in an industry where a lot of stuff is cash in hand.
Yeah.
So we make a couple $100 and it's like, oh, this is great. And you throw it in your pocket and you go and you spend it all because it's fake money, as far as it seems to feel sometimes. The awareness of the fact that it's funny that within our industry, if we're feeling depressed, we'll drop $150, $200 on a night out getting blackout drunk. But we won't take that money and put it towards just sitting down with a psychologist or a counselor, which is mind-boggling. And then once it's just getting over that first hump. Onboarding venues, we want to have officially associated venues that basically they have things like quality low and zero proof bar options. That the staff and the management team has been at least relatively trained on if someone were to an employee or the employer is struggling with their own mental health.
We've been lucky at PAGS because PAGS has been open for 40 years, and it's a family-run business from day one. Since 1979, Solomon, who's the GM now, his dad opened it with his uncle, and we've had to deal with a lot of, obviously in the back of house more so in the front of house, and Soul, we don't pay medical benefits, but Soul has always been open to going, you're going to this therapist this week, and I know that he's paid for some serious therapy for some of the kitchen guys. Yeah. Because you think in PAGS, there's only 3 people online, and we do 650 people from 11 till 11 for a 75-seat room.
Oh, you're white knuckled.
Yeah, it's insane the whole time. And so, of course, it's that spring back. You go push, 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 and how do you relax? You bang it all the way back. Yeah. And I think in this day and age with youth, I shouldn't say youngsters because that's a cop out, but the fake environments of social media
where everything looks like everything's great. Everyone's life is better than your own.
And I think the kids call it FOMO. And I think that's a hard thing too, because we sat down and talked to the kid that works with us, and he's like, oh well, I want this long term. I'm like, okay, cool. The trips are cool, the junkets and the trips to Nicaragua and all that sort of stuff. That's fantastic, but you still got to deal with the problem that you have. Yeah. That doesn't change whether you gain a trip to somewhere or a paid trip to Tails, something like that. Still, issues are still there.
Well, I mean, Mind the Bar is not trying to vilify drinking. That was something we wanted to be very steadfast from the get-go. And the terminology behind addiction at that point, basically anyone in the industry is a full-blown alcoholic. Yeah. And I think that there's a difference between is someone that actually suffers from alcoholism.
Trust me, I've tried to get life insurance, and when the insurance agent goes, so how much do you drink a week? I'm like, oh shit, lie as much as possible. So there's been a couple times I've got in the car with the wife, and I'm like, so what I told the insurance agent, that's what I pretty much drink in the night. Yeah. Working a busy Friday night, that's pretty much my intake. She's like, what? Well,
that's the thing, is that our industry does, a lot of people from the early onset, when I started to have the conversation of what would have become Mind the Bar, people are like, well, there's a lot of this stuff out there. And I said, well, no, there really isn't, because if there was, I wouldn't need to be thinking about this. I wouldn't need to go find it. And our industry doesn't exist within it.
Well, and I think, sorry, I'm just texting my wife.
Making sure you're not with another woman.
I don't have time for that. And I don't want to. That's the one thing I always have to say. I don't want to, but I actually don't have enough time for anything. I think it's a good thing, too, because I think there's always that polarizing aspect of we got to talk about mental health. Okay, we got to talk about no drinking at all. Right,
and that's not it. It's more why you're drinking. Mm-hmm. Is it because you're just having fun? You're having a couple of drinks? Okay, probably no problem with that. I mean, obviously, in excess, when you're beyond the limits of control, then that's when you have to start measuring it. But if you're doing it because you're coping with your own mental health, or you're bearing your depression or your anxiety or something that's happened to you, whether it's workplace harassment, that kind of thing, if you're bearing it with substance abuse, that's where the kind of measure is. And it's interesting where you're saying how your workplace doesn't have benefits. Last year, Christina and I were fortunate enough to be doing well enough in business that we could either give ourselves a relative raise or do benefits for the company. And If we want to retain staff, that's a big thing. So we have full benefits within our companies, which is rare in our industry, especially for
sure.
for like mom and pop, so to speak.
And the way Pags does is like they don't pay for benefits, but if you come to them and it's like, I need to get my tooth done or I need to get my knee done, they're like, okay, cool.
Well, the problem with the extended medical is that I can get $1 million in prescription drugs a year. I mean, that might be exaggerating, but not by much. Like, I mean, you can pretty much medicate yourself to the point where you don't even know where you are, what your name is. You can get 80% of your dental covered, but when it comes to any additional extended medical, so like acupuncture, physiotherapy, or mental health, it's $300 per practitioner per year. Now, you can go to a couple different physiotherapists if you want to, and you can kind of spread that out.
Yeah.
But try to explain your problems to, let's say,
in half an hour, 45 minutes.
12 to 30 different psychologists over the period of a year. Like, it's fairly redundant. So that's the problem, is it doesn't work. So one element that Mind the Bar is really hoping to get to when we're able to have a little bit more money, that $50,000 we've already allocated, like it's already gone. Just on basic startups, that's nonprofit costs. And a lot of it's come out of our individual personal pockets or company pockets already, but is to be able to offer financial assistance to those within the industry that recognize that they need to get help. But because, I mean, the cost of living here in Victoria is not unlike the cost of living in Vancouver. I mean, we're basically all living in poverty. And a lot of people want to get that help, but they can't afford it. And more often than not, they can't see the value in going to seek mental health therapy until they've tried it at least once or twice. So what our aim is that if someone were to approach Mind the Bar saying, I really want to talk to someone, I'm dealing with depression, we actually will have a committee that deals with the mental health element, the help, so to speak. They kind of do, I don't want to say an initial diagnosis, but obviously some elements of addiction will be different than depression. And we already have a short list of vetted mental health professionals. So our intention is to be able to cover the initial costs of getting them an appointment with someone that we would recommend, so that we can just get them in the door, so they can see the value in seeing someone. And then, because all of these vetted mental health professionals will operate on a sliding scale, so that like my psychologist, who I think the world of, she's been so crucial in my own personal development, but she operates on a sliding scale. So initially we did it basically at her, I think she was as low as $70 or $80 if I'm not mistaken. And because the importance for her was just to make sure that someone was getting help. And then if your finances can allow, then she goes up to a little bit higher, but not by much. But
wow. Holy crap, you've got a whole setup.
Well, it's Mind the Bar when, like, a lot of it came from my personal experiences with mental health, my experiences with the hospitality industry, the interactions I had. I mean, if you're in this industry long enough, you kind of see a lot of the ways that things work, and then you start to question some of the way that things work, like the FOMO you're talking about. Like one of the things that we're really trying to build is the ability within the industry to, like, the way that we the older generation got ahead was through networking. And the only way to network was to be out and basically
and drinking and
drink everybody else.
And you go to every tasting, even if you've tasted that product a million times and you're the brand ambassador, you go to every tasting, every event, every function. And I mean, that was the way to do it. And what we're really hoping to encourage and do is to encourage that networking and that peer-to-peer development and that tutelage, without this, like, okay, we're going to get you absolutely sloshed. So, like, one of the things we talked about very early on was name one bartender-focused industry event that does not involve getting absolutely hammered, and nobody could think of one. Like, it was just like, nope, like, there's just nothing. Even like the general tasting events, like, usually if you're industry and it's a tasting event, like, you get poured a little heavy. IVSA, like. IVSA back in the day, there's been a number of times where I have to warn my wife 2 weeks before I'd go.
Right.
So I'm like, no, it's IVSA this Tuesday. She's like, really?
Yeah.
Already? And it was when I was still learning about a ton of wine, so I was tasting everything. Now I'm definitely, like, more focused. But I completely agree. Like, even with the people understanding mental health and drinking and being attached to that and that sort of thing is still, like, tales and that sort of thing, still Like, there's tons of options.
Right.
I'm just getting drunk by 2 o'clock.
If you got up late.
Yeah. Well, me and Soul's always my Jiminy Cricket. Soul's like my old guy that comes with me, even though he's a year younger than me. But like every single place, like you taste every drink, you don't have to finish every drink.
Right.
And so we'd go a whole 10 hours. And we still wouldn't be drunk because we'd just be like, taste good, awesome, put it down.
Right.
Taste awesome, but there's been a couple of times, and there's been a couple of kids, I'm sure that happened with you too. It's like, I'm going to Tails this year. What's your advice?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't worry about trying to get everything. Like, you don't need to hit every single tasting, every single tasting. And I've had friends who have been in the Monsignor and I'm sitting at the Carousel bar having a beer, and they'd show up and they'd just be freaking annihilated at 3 o'clock. I'm like, there's still 12 hours worth of parties to go to, and I need to pour you into bed. Like, I need to just pour you into bed. You're done.
Well, we also, again, it's that really fine line between, we want, the industry loves to have fun.
Yes.
And the one thing that Mind the Bar never wants to be is that snooty mom where it's like, no, you got to be in bed by 7 and blah blah. It's just, it can't exist like that. So it's we're still discovering where is the
happy
the middle ground on that. And the thing that's also really terrifying right now is that I'm fortunate because I never participated in it, but it's very prevalent throughout the industry is that you have a few drinks and then all of a sudden there's some cocaine involved.
Yeah.
And right now we're in the middle of an opioid crisis, and there is no disparity in how that is affecting people. It's just, we're talking about granulars of fraction of a salt.
And we're talking about recreational as well.
Exactly.
We're not talking about habitual. We're talking about one time every 6 to 12
and
months.
It doesn't
when it's
matter.
just out with
Russian
the boys
roulette with that stuff.
And 100% on that one. Man, I am mentally exhausted after this conversation. In the best way possible.
It's just, what we're really excited about with Mind the Bar is the fact that as much as we pride ourselves on being prevalent in the industry, is that we're not the only ones. You've got Not 9 to 5 over in Toronto. I'm terrible. I feel awful, but I'm totally blanking on the Chicago-based one that we competed against in. But you're seeing it across social media is that more and more people within the hospitality industry, with the chef Joe, that Joe Beef article came out.
Everybody blew up about that one.
When I read that, I remember seeing them on Bourdain's show, and I just remember thinking to myself, I remember, I
sculling a quarter bowl of bourbon down a barrel and that sort of thing.
I'd be
but I think that plays back to the caricature of yourself,
right?
When you go out, what are people expecting from you,
right?
And I'm working with someone on the East Coast now who is a prevalent. I won't say what he does, but he's prevalent, and he had become for a long time a caricature himself. And I've been at events with him, and people are trying to get him drunk because they want to see that caricature.
Right.
You can tell that he's not wanting to do this. He doesn't want to be that person. He wants to have a quiet night and have fun, but he doesn't want to be the person that everybody assumes that he is.
Yeah, you become you're an actor that's played a part for so long that people want you to do that bit.
Dance me, monk.
Yeah.
Dance, monkey, dance.
Running into Jim Carrey on the street, exactly. You're going to be like, oh, do that thing from Ace Ventura.
And you read some of it. I'm a big fan of Jim Carrey, so you watch the one he did the behind the scenes Man in the Moon,
right? And
you definitely see that sort of alignment and the parallels of being in the bar industry when he starts talking about becoming Andy Kaufman, and you're like, oh shit, I can feel this because I feel that way on a Friday night when I go put on the suit and get on behind the bar and stuff like that. I can feel the alignment, and you watch some of the Jim Carrey stuff and you can see that yes, being a comedian is great and pays the bills, but he's not that person at all.
Right.
And I think Robin Williams is the same as well.
Robin Williams' passing definitely affected me because the number of comedians, and Mitch Hedberg, the number of comedians that hide their depression behind humor. I certainly do. I definitely I make light of it, not to try to undermine mental health, but sometimes that's just feels like it's the easiest way. Perfect example. It's the easiest way of dealing with it. But the other thing that I'm not lost to in being the founder and I guess the current president of Mind the Bar is that I'm 38. I'm starting to I'm now in the ownership role. I'm not in that space that I was in my 20s when I was starting out in the industry, and so it's so important to make sure for me to make sure the foundation is still very much grounded, because the Man in the Bar is not for my me and my
agenda,
peers.
yeah.
It's not even for that my generation. I mean, I hope it does help. But it's for the people, the kids that are earlier in, like in their early 20s, their mid 20s, that are in the industry, that are really in the
thick of it.
The thick of it, yeah. Where it's like the drinking, the whole culture, that FOMO, and it's also for the generation that haven't even entered it, like the ones that are still in their teens that are going to enter into the industry, and the idea of being able to have an industry that they can enter into where they can actually be open about their mental health, that they can have options about their drinking, that all these things. So it's I mean, having the new members on will be huge, and to have those, like, it's one of those things, those companies that totally lose touch with their demographic because they're like, oh, well, we're going to tell you what you need. It's like, no, you tell us what does the industry need. I mean, when I had started, when Mind the Bar kind of initially formed, before it kind of went public, I took it upon myself to sit my staff down, both at Gringo and Dixie's, had them into a room. We were doing some staff stuff anyways, and I brought it to them just that, that this was going to be happening, that I was going to be heading it up, that so as their boss, as the owner of the company, like that I would be this would also be very important to me, and that by association the companies would be. And I just wanted to make sure that the staff were going to be comfortable with the fact that there might be some focus on them and that mental health thing and stuff like that. And I expected almost a little bit of, not even resentment, but like some hesitation, like, you know,
snide,
oh, you're right, you're trying to kill our fun. And I wanted to make sure that they understood that it was a very open door policy, and we always had. But the fact that I had started this, what was more interesting is, and I had told people, I said, if you're really looking for that lifestyle, unfortunately, our company is really going to be reeling that in.
It's not going to be happening.
So, if you find other work, I don't take it personally. What happened instead is I had a few employees reach out to me personally and just say, hey, I'm actually not doing okay right now.
Wow.
And I'd really like to talk about some of the things that you were talking about that I think that I might be experiencing. And it was just like that, oh man, okay, that this really is like you know, even in every time that people post stuff, it's just for people within our industry to see people that they look up to. And I'm not necessarily saying that people look up to me, but there are people in this industry that people respect. And for them to come forward saying, you know what, actually, I deal with this stuff. So if someone else is dealing with it, they can be like, okay, well, at least there's a relatability. And that's the whole thing, is that mental health is just relatability. Like, it's affecting everybody. And anyone
in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't been affected by it, they're either incredibly lucky or they're a liar. And I haven't met anyone that hasn't had some 100%. Form of it, especially in our industry.
So, well, it's going to be a long one, but I don't mind.
We can cut out a bunch.
No, trust me, I don't. I actually don't do a lot of post edit because I like I did an interview with Robin Gray, and he was talking about his addiction issues and stuff like that. And I was like, and I've known Robin for like 10 years, and he's never told me these stories. I'm like, holy shit! And I felt the same way. Like, I just get mentally exhausted listening.
Yeah.
But okay, let's tie this off in a nice way. What advice would you give a young bartender who's might be listening right now and feeling like a little bit? What advice would you give to them if they don't feel like they can go to anybody and talk to them?
Well, I mean, if it wouldn't even be a bartender, it'd be anyone in the industry. That's something that Mind the Bar really is focused on. Is as much as we've been getting a lot of attention front of house through Tohono with bartenders, is that it is very much for everyone in the industry, front of house, back of house. And if for whatever reason, you know, the first person that they go to, they doesn't feel comfortable talking about it, or they don't feel comfortable talking to them, there's so many options out there. I mean, more often than not, I think that a lot of people are seeing their peers and their friends speak about it on social media. But at the very least, there's Mind the Bar. Like we have a website, www.mindthebar.com. We're on social media. We have a Facebook page, and we've had several people reach out to us through Mind the Bar, expressing that they're not doing very well or they're struggling with something, and we won't turn anyone away. Obviously, the idea is that we'll be better situated
and everything
to be able to get the help that they need. But we have people already able to assist that with. But I mean, from my own personal story, for anyone that might be listening. For everyone listening, I should say.
Nobody listens to my podcast. So, like anybody out there that's listening to Shawn's
podcast, is that when I knew that I needed help, I I was okay, but I needed to get the help that I needed, and so I went online and started just look for help. And so I just typed in, I think, mental health contact or something like that. And the first two numbers I called were suicide hotlines, unbeknownst to me, because that's not how they were listed. And, I was like, well, no, are you suicidal? No, I had an episode in which it kind of was in the back of my mind, but I'm not. And basically what it was, a situation where they said, well, if you're not currently in a state of suicide or contemplating suicide, we really can't help you, because they didn't want to tie up the lines. Now, I've had a couple of people within those hotlines say that was absolutely the wrong thing to do and that shouldn't happen, but that was my personal experience. And I don't take any harm from it. They recommended that I basically call like a VGH or whatever. And then what I did was I looked at I didn't know the difference between a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist. And there are huge disparities between the level of professionalism, or I should say education, and cost. And so I just, they have all those little letters beside their names that mean absolutely nothing to most of us. And I emailed 20 of them randomly. Just, hey, so this is kind of what's happening. I'm not doing very well. I kind of thought about suicide, but I don't want to. And I'm just looking for help. I'm just looking for someone to talk to. 18 of them, and I did include the fact that I was financially not restricted, but a little bit hindered. I just had to take that into consideration. And 18 of the 20 mental health professionals basically wrote me back saying, well, if you can't pay me, then I can't help you. And best thing for you to do is go to the hospital, and which is exactly a worst case scenario. I mean, if you are in a 911 situation, yes, go to the hospital. If you've got a friend that's in that state, just grab them and take them to the hospital, because there are practices in place to make sure the safeguards. But that's exactly not the answer that I wanted. Fortunately, had I been in a worse state, that might have been enough to tip me over the edge. Where basically I was looking for help, and everyone's like, well, you can't afford me, or I can't help you, or that kind of thing.
Reinforces that no one cares.
Yeah, exactly. Fortunately, someone recommended the psychologist that I have now to me, and I reached out to her, and she was phenomenal, and she has been phenomenal. The way that she dealt with it was terrific, and I later, she's actually on the BC Psychologist Association panel. I can't really remember what it's called, but she's actually on that panel, and I told her what my experience was with those emails, and she was mortified. I mean, there's been huge government cutbacks in the mental health field. That's it's really inexcusable. You see it in the DTES in Vancouver. But it's just that thing where it's just it was what Mind the Bar hopes to do, is be able to change the fact that you will be able to get the help you need much faster and without that sense of rejection. So,
that's a good tie-off. I really appreciate you coming over and having a chat.
And it's literally gone from sun to hail to pouring rain in the car. I don't know how long
I did text my wife to say,
days.
come meet me at the Drake. And I'm pretty sure she's like, probably not. But I really appreciate sitting down with you. Oh, that's great. I have a whole bunch of brandies in my bag right now.
Now you have a bunch of broken glass and brandy at the bottom of your bag.
Awesome. But I really appreciate sitting down with you.
I appreciate your support and everything you've done for us.
Thank you. I'm always up to plugging it. I'm going to do a little post edit.
Hey, Post Shift, and this is the post edit I was talking about. Come on down to Churchill on April 3rd for the Russell's Beer Mind the Bar Collaborative. We're going to do a little tasting, talk about mental health. It's a day that I really want to start bringing transparency to the industry. So it's an open door policy to chat about anything you need to chat about. In the meantime, subscribe, rate, share, do everything you can possibly do for this podcast. Get it out there so more people can hear about it and be more open with their mental health issues in this industry. In the meantime, have a good week. Enjoy your shift.